How's everyone this morning? I want to bring something up. I've had some of my followers ask me some questions about walking their dogs, whether the length of their leash is correct or how to get the dog to focus on us when we're walking. So instead of going right into it and showing you, let me explain first what we're going to be doing. I'm going to create a series of videos that's going to lead to understanding on how to walk the dog, how the dog is going to stay close to us without pulling us when we're walking. So my method is TCM, right? So it's timing, consistency, and motivation. To remember that, I always tell people, just remember the CARM method, right? Timing, consistency, motivation, right? So we'll talk about timing. Obviously, consistency is makes sense, right? Just to be consistent about it. And motivation is rewarding your dog, right? What's the motivation behind it? Why do we go to work? To get a paycheck, right? Why is the dog doing stuff for us that we ask the dog to do, that the dog understands we ask him to do it? He or she does it, and we reward the dog, right? So timing is very important. Timing is marking the behavior when the dog is doing something correctly. I use classical conditioning, which is Pavlov's dog. Just a real quick story about that. Pavlov was a Russian psychologist doing experiment with salvatory responses with dogs. During feeding, his assistants were kind of getting in the way, so he devised a system where there was a dispenser for food. The bell would ring, the buzzer would go off, brrr, and then the food would get dispensed. And what he saw was when the bell would ring and the food would get dispensed, if it happened at a certain time, the timing of it, the dogs would actually start to salivate before the food came out. So that's how he coined classical conditioning, right? So the dogs became conditioned to that bell, to that sound, right? Just like clicker training, right? That is part of classical conditioning. That is a marker in the moment of time that the dog is doing something correctly, followed by a reward, right? So instead of the clicker, which I lose all the time, and I'm sure you guys, I could tell you get clickers, start using clickers, you're gonna lose them too, unless you buy 100 and just keep them everywhere. But anyway, I use yes. Yes is my marker, right? So I teach the dog when the dog hears yes, the timing, right? The moment of time that the dog is walking by my side, looking at me, or that position that I'm looking for, I mark it with yes, and then I follow with reward. You could do it with just reward, but you have 1.3 seconds to mark the behavior of the dog. Marking the behavior, you only have a short timeline of making that happen. Not every time are you going to be able to get the treat to the dog in 1.3 seconds. To let the dog know what he or she just did was the marker, was yes, this is what I like what you did, you're going to get paid for this particular thing, right? That's why we use a marker. If I say yes, if I say sit and the dog sits, as soon as his butt hits the ground, I say yes, I have time to reach in, get the dog treat, and give it to him or her. Okay, so marking behavior is important, and that's going to be the first thing that we're going to learn. And does the dog understand what yes or even what a clicker is? No, right? We have to download that in the dog's brain, right? How do we download yes? We simply take a few days and hand feed the dog every time the dog eats, right? Instead of filling up his bowl, his or her bowl, and letting that dog eat out of the bowl, I simply stay with the dog when the dog is eating. I grab a handful of food, right? I don't ask the dog to do anything. The dog knows that the food is in my hand. I say yes. Right after I say yes, I open my hand and I let the dog eat. Not together. Our brains automatically want to do it together. Yes, we want to make sure we do it the right way, right? We say yes, and then we open our hand. So maybe like 3 or 4 days every time you feed your dog, to load that yes, so the dog understands what that positive marker means, right? Or once the dog hears that yes, right, which is a sound to a dog, right, the dog is expecting reward, right? So this way, when we start teaching walking by our side and the dog stays by our side and we mark that behavior, the dog's by my side, I go yes, and I pay the dog understands if you do this a bunch of times, right? 50, 100 times, 200 times, whatever, depending on the dog, every time, yes, 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 the dog understands if I stay in this position, I'm going to get rewarded, right? And that'll be part of the soliciting of behavior. If you ever stood in front of a dog with a treat in your hand and didn't ask the dog to say anything, the dog is going to solicit behavior that has gotten reward in the past. So the dog may sit, the dog may down, may give you its paw, right? Without even being asked for. That's the dog understanding that if I do this, I get reward. Okay, I'm going to follow this up with I'm going to show everybody how it's done. I'm going to use one of my dogs at the end of this video to show you how to load that yes. And we have to start doing that first before we can move on to me teaching you how to walk the dog next to our side without him pulling. So thank you so very much. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you so much. Yes. So like I was saying before, right? You don't have to ask him to do anything. Okay, so he just automatically went to a sit. All right, you just put the treat in your hand or the food and you go yes, and he gets paid, right? Yes, good boy. Yes, yes, yes. And just like that, you do this a bunch of times, he will become conditioned to the yes. Yes, and pay. Yes, and pay. Yes, and pay. All right.